Good. So I'd like to start by saying a little bit about my supplies. I found that each and every artist uses a certain brush, a certain paper, certain paints, and it's also, you know, personal, whatever works for you. I like to start with a really big brush. I studied with Fei Ling Lin, and she used this nice big 2-inch brush. And I found that that was one of the things I took away from her classes was the really big brush and get the paper wet. And so I do like a big flat brush to start. This brush is by Dumar. It's well used, as you can see. Art Supply Warehouse, about $20 when I purchased it. And at one time I had misplaced it. I thought I lost it. So I went to Art Supply Warehouse and got another, and it was like $25, so price went up. And then I found it, and I haven't really had, you know, a chance to use the new one, so I have a backup just in case I do ever lose it again. So that's probably my favorite brush. And then from there I just use rounds. I really don't have a favorite brush. The Brush Lady, I think you guys probably remember the Brush Lady. You know, I got many brushes from her, but pretty much I just like a round brush. And I find that they don't last forever, so if your brush is old, throw it away and just get a new one. You're worth it. And the paints that I'm using today, I do have other paints that I use, but today I'm using Mission Gold Class Watercolor by Martin F. Weber. And I've made a chart. These are the colors that match my palette. So the palette's like this. I find this very, very helpful. If you have a palette of colors that you like, whether it be oil paints or watercolors, make yourself a chart, because this is very important, especially if you're doing demos and somebody says, what color is that? You may need to you know, check your chart. So I'm going to leave this up on the table, and anyone who wants to see it up close, you can. Martin F. Weber has donated these 2 paints, so you can have this for your raffle too. I'll put this here, and then when it's raffle time, there's 2 tubes of these colors. Permanent red, I think, and the blue might be cobalt. It's kind of flipped around. Cerulean. These colors are very, very rich. They're almost ink-like. For those of you who do watercolor paints, I'm sure you know Winsor & Newton, Holbein, Da Vinci, Cheap Joe's. There's so many different brands out there. And I stumbled upon this brand, I think maybe 2 years ago. They sent me an email and just asked me if I would try it. So I did, and I have been doing demos and workshops using these paints exclusively. And I'm very impressed with them. I love their brilliance, and they're creamy, and they don't dry up. You can probably see the pigments, how wet they are. So if you do get these paints, be sure you keep your palette flat, because if you tip it, the paints will run. They're very, very creamy. This is a chart. This is a color chart. And I'll leave this up here in case anybody wants to see their colors. They're available at Dick Blick. The cards that I have up here, these are greeting cards. These are photos of some of my portraits. These are $5 each if anybody wants a card. Okay, the paints, of course, the water, the paper. I used to like Arches a lot, but I found that Arches has something going on with the sizing. I've been using Arches kind of exclusively for the last maybe 10 years, and I found that the sizing just wasn't working for me. I'd be painting along, and all of a sudden the water and the pigment, everything would just go right through to the other side. And it was like a mar in the paper, a little like something wasn't going right. So I found this paper. It is by Daler Rowney, and it's called Langdon Prestige. And I will pass this around so you can see this. You can write this down if you want. Dick Blick has it, a set of 10 sheets, cold press, about $39, so about $40 for 10 sheets. Not a bad price. But once in a while they have this special, buy 1 set of 10 and get 10 free. You can't beat that. 20 sheets. Full-size sheets, watercolors for $40. So I do recommend it. They have rough and cold press. I like the cold press. I did get rough as well, but I find for portraits, for what I'm doing today, I prefer the cold press. So I'll put this here too if anybody wants to write that down. Daler Rowney, Langdon Prestige, and it was 10 sheets, 22 by 30 sheets for about $40.
What store did you buy that?
Dick Blick. I pretty much order everything online. When I go to the store, I find that I buy way too many things and I really wasn't interested. You know, I think as ladies we're kind of taught that very young how to shop, you know. And so I just find I go online, I go down my list of things that I like to get, watercolors, watercolor paper, brushes if I need them. One of the brushes that I do like is a Fritch scrubber. And I've only found this at Cheap Joe's, and I call it a scrubby brush if you want to lift. This is really good for lifting. You could use an old oil painting brush as well, but Cheap Joe's sells a set of 3 of these for $12. And so I do like those. Of course, kneaded eraser and pencil, just a standard pencil. This is the Magic Sponge Eraser. This is for lifting too. You dip it in the water, get it nice and wet, and you can lift. It's very abrasive. Anybody try these already? New watercolors? Yeah. They actually make these for artists now, and it costs like 3 times as much. But you can get them at 99-cent store. It's called Clean Eraser or something. But Magic Sponge Eraser was the original by Mr. Clean. And now, like I said, everybody makes them. For portraits, when I get close to the end, many times, especially for the eye, and you guys can see that I've worked on the eye here, many times I use, these are pastel pencils. Genevieve does pastels, you know, the hard pencils. It just brings back a little glow in the eye. Now if you're entering, of course, Watercolor West, you want to be careful not to use pastel pencils or gouache or acrylic white, or no acrylics of any kind, no U-bow paper. They're very traditional Watercolor West, so you wouldn't want to use these if you're entering Watercolor West. But National Watercolor Society, NWS of course, would allow you to use any kind of pencil work. I just find that my preference, this is how I like to bring the glow back into the eye. So basically what I would do is paint the eye first, the skin color, and then go in with the color of the eye. And then the glow is across from the highlight. So right here would be the glow. And I've already done this, but I'm just kind of redoing that so you can see. And then to get a white, a really strong white, you could use acrylic white, or you could use a pastel pencil. I find they're stronger if you wet them first, and then just give it a real hard mark, and you'll get a real strong highlight. So that's pretty much how I do an eye, and if we have time at the end, I will go ahead and do an eye and maybe show you how to do lips and noses too, because in portraiture, I find that the eyes are the soul of the sitter. So if you really nail the eyes of the portrait that you're doing, to me it's just more important. And you really just need to capture the essence of the sitter. You don't have to do everything perfect. You're inspired by their photo, and so it doesn't have to be perfect. So those are the pencils. Talked about that, paints. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about value. Value, value, value. Value does all the work and color gets all the credit. I don't know if you guys have seen this. I got this on the internet. It's a checkerboard all done in value. You see this little square here? Do you believe that these 2 squares are the same value as that square? Hard to believe, isn't it? Yeah. This value looks darker because it's cast a shadow. But this value, that's the one I pointed to, that's number 1 and number 2 are the same value. Is that amazing? So don't trust your eye. Actually, you need to actually do a value study sometimes. You can get a paint chip at the paint store. sure where it is now. But you know, you get the whole value of one color paint, black, and you punch holes in it with a hole punch. Here it is. These are free, guys. All you need is a hole punch.
Why the hole punch?
To, like, say for instance, I needed to know what value the lady with the blue hat is, I would squint one eye and look through the hole and find the value that matches her hat. I'm squinting with one eye. The value of her hat. The value, just keep squinting. Of course, it's a different color. But it's about this value. It's about this value. So squint with one eye. If you nail the value of the portrait, color doesn't matter. Really, color doesn't matter. I did this painting of my mentor. I hope you recognize my mentor. Anybody recognize Tom Fong?
Yes.
Tom Fong taught me to believe in myself. He taught me to paint from my heart, not from my head. He said many times, and those of you who have seen me before know that I'll paraphrase Tom, and he'll say, I'm just a Boy Scout leader. You teach yourself how to paint. And he was a wonderful cheerleader, and he always was cheering me on. And in his class, I would always sit to that side of him, to the right side. And of course, I'd take notes, and he would use the sponge, and he would use this color, and he'd use a certain brush. And but more importantly, I learned from Tom to believe in myself and to paint, 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 paint. You're never finished painting. There's always something else to do. And this is a copy, of course. Tom has the original. This painting was in NWS Member Show 2 years ago, I think. And so Tom has the original on that. This is another copy of a young man who studies with me. I'm his mentor. His name is Tony, and he's paralyzed from the neck down. He can only move his head, guys, but he's a painter.
Is that Tony Lynn?
Yes.
I don't
Do you know him?
He was my student for a while.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a mouth painter.
Right.
And he was with the Mouth and Foot Painters Association, and he paints acrylics, and I honored him with this. He has the original. This is a copy. So I'm his mentor, but I say that Tony taught me a lot about life. This man, a young man, paralyzed from the neck down, can only use his head. So I mix the acrylics and put the brush in his mouth. He tells me what colors, and he's a pretty fast painter too. Lately, he's been downsizing his canvases to smaller pieces, and so he'll kind of finish them in an hour and a half, 2 hours. So he really has a lot of work. He's going to have a show soon, so he's not painting right now. And this is probably my latest work. Of course, I think you guys recognize this guy. This is a print. I take it to Kinko's, and they make somehow they do it with the computer. A digital copy, I guess you would call that, where they make a copy and then they put it on paper. And this is cardstock paper, so it's a little heavy. I did not bring the original, but it's pretty close to the original. So if you're doing portraits, don't be afraid to start to do a portrait from a black and white. Today I'm going to paint my man Sam from a black and white. This is a black and white photo that we had taken on a cruise ship probably almost 2 years ago. We spent a lot of money in the Platinum Studio, they called it. And of course the photograph is highly retouched and everything. But anyway, I thought I would try to show you how you don't need a color copy. Most of us have had old